Hi everyone, and welcome to the Optimised Practice podcast. I'm your host, Emma Price, and today I'm joined by the fantastic Alice Treadwell. She is the practice manager at Flawless Feet Podiatry and Laser Clinic based in London. Today we're going to be discussing the whens and the hows of hiring practice managers. So hi Alice, thank you for joining me today.
Hi Emma, thank you for having me. This is my podcast debut, so bear with me.
I'm sure you'll smash it. Let's kick off then. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your journey into your current role?
Yeah, of course. My background is in business management and hospitality. So I originally started out in luxury hotels. I then moved into corporate hospitality, so worked for an investment bank in Sydney, and then moved up to executive assisting within the bank, and then moved back to England, had a family, was a stay-at-home mum for a long time. So I lost my identity a little bit in that. So when I was going back into industry, I didn't know what I was good at anymore. So I ended up just finding a part-time reception job, which happened to be in a podiatry clinic. I had never heard of podiatry, didn't have a clue. It was a whole new world to me. So I started as a receptionist. It was a new business. So I started on day 2. So very quickly, I realised that I was doing a lot more than just your average receptionist, because it was a new business. We were still coming out of COVID as well. We didn't have a lot of staff, so I was taking on more and more roles and just naturally taking them on as well. It just felt normal to do more and more behind the scenes. So then that ultimately turned into a practice manager role, and as the clinic got bigger, we went from a 3-room to a 7-room. I mean, it was like the ultimate dream clinic. So did practice managing that for a while, and then I left there last year. And finding a practice manager role in a podiatry clinic is probably one of the most unique roles you can try and look for.
Yes, very neat.
Very tricky, and particularly geographically where I am. So I'd sort of got to the point where I thought, okay, well maybe I have to give up podiatry. Maybe it's not going to work out. And then just by chance, I put a message on one of Kieran's LinkedIn videos about recruitment for a podiatrist. I think it was something along the lines of "love it," and he obviously saw that I was looking for work and contacted me. And then we got talking, and he needed a practice manager, and I still wanted to be in that role and in that world. And it felt really sad having to lose all that information about podiatry to move on to any other role. So yeah, just the stars aligned, and here I am now, 6 months in.
Stars align, the universe did it.
They did, yeah.
Let's do a role overview. Can you sort of give us a taste of what you do day to day?
Yeah, so my role, I basically integrate the ideas that Kieran has, so the owner has. The owners have all the visions, and they usually are clinical, so they're not necessarily businessy people, and they're learning that as well. Whereas my background is in business and in hospitality. I've always served people. It feels odd not to serve people and always be on show. So for me, my qualities were that's sort of where I excel at, I guess. I'm always thinking of people. I'm thinking of the journey that people are on, whether that's staff or our patients. So for me, my role itself is probably more operational leadership. And then I'm looking at the performance of just the business and the individuals in it, and then being that leadership person for the team, so they can come to me rather than having to always go to Kieran, the owner.
I really like that idea that you're actually you're a conduit between the business needs and the patient journey, because you've got experience in both. So you're listening to Kieran and what the business needs from you, but also you understand the patient journey, and you're sort of really nice fit in between the two.
When I first started out in podiatry, I was on reception. I've seen the journey from the moment they call up or inquire online to when they're leaving and they're paying and they're rebooking. So it's a really lovely area to know.
Power in that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And it just means that when I implement things to the team, firstly, I'm able to sort of speak their language a bit more. So when I know something's going to be quite, not tricky, but just it's going to be a little bit time consuming to learn, it's just going to be something new, I can get into their mind frame a bit more and be able to implement it through how they see it rather than how, as a manager, we want them to just do it. And that is powerful. That's quite helpful. And hopefully the team are quite happy with the way that I do it.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure, absolutely.
They haven't told me otherwise anyway.
Thank you for that. So what would you say an owner, a healthcare practice owner, should be looking for in their practice managers? Because we've touched on, you've had previous experience in hospitality and that kind of stuff. So what are the qualities that you think you have that make you so good at your role?
Yeah, so I actually wrote a really long list for this, so I hope you've got time. But no, for me, I think as an owner, if you're gonna take on a practice manager, the first question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of person can I work closely with? Because you're effectively going to hand over the keys to the business to this person, and if your goal is to do less out front and be more of a kind of silent partner in the business, and if you've got other ventures you want to go down, then you're going to have trust, and you're going to have someone that is like-minded like you, but is also just has got value in what you see, and that you share similar values, and that you just respect each other. For me, I would be looking for someone with a growth mindset. If they're going to be taking on the business, you don't want them to just manage and react. You want them to be proactive and move the business forward with you. You still want someone that's going to question your decisions in the sound off with, but you don't want someone that's just going to butt heads with you and question everything that you're trying to do. But sometimes, if you can have someone that's like, for me, I was in the hospitality world, so that's my whole background, was basically being at the highest level in hospitality. So healthcare is quite similar. You're still, especially private, because they're paying money to come and see you. So everyone wants to have the best possible service for that.
It's all about experience now, isn't it? In the world of social media and reviews and stuff that we're in, you've got to prioritize that, haven't you? So you need, I think, in my practice, my practice manager absolutely works alongside me, like you said, but also, somebody that can take hold of that patient experience sort of part of that team, and really drive that forward for you. So while you've got strategy on one side, you've got, patient experience and team. You need those two sets working together.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for me, everything that I try and do is for the team or for the patients, and in turn then that's for the business. So I'm the person that, if we do get any complaints or anything like that, then I will be contacting them. And something I've learned sort of in this last year is that actually a complaint isn't the worst thing. It's probably the best thing that can happen, because it just means that there's a process that could have been better. It's never nice when you get them, but usually the review after it is that, do you know what, that was a good thing has come from it. Something has had to change because of it that we might not have ordinarily seen.
So as a practice manager, you need to have that mindset, right? Where there's a gift in everything. We teach that at the Hive. There's a gift in everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Flip those.
And just general things like being calm under pressure, and you've been held accountable for things as well, and just being able to hold your hands up and go, do you know what, that doesn't work, let's try something different, or we don't need to change anything because it works.
So what would you say is the hardest part of your role? You've just mentioned taking complaints and that kind of stuff. So would
Yeah,
you identify?
don't enjoy that.
What-
Yeah, so I mean, that's never hard. But one thing I have learned with complaints is that they're never about me. They're always about the business, or maybe an experience that it didn't meet their expectations. So when I'm dealing with them, I used to really have to psych myself up for the phone calls and write every note under the sun about, okay, what are all the options going to be in this? But what I've learned is, actually anyone that complains, they just want to be heard, and I'm the person that will hear them. And then, whether I agree or disagree with what they say, is we can come to some agreement on where we go from there. And ultimately, we want to get them to come back in. So we don't want to just hand out freebies, but equally, if there's a lesson to be learned, then we can learn that. But in saying that, I think one of the hardest parts of being a practice manager is just dealing with people, dealing with staff and HR issues, managing people, and then having to prioritize all the other bits that go with that. Because we're a team of 10 at the moment, and on any given day I can get 9 messages from every staff member with something that they need or want, or a suggestion. And so everything that I plan to do that day is sort of sidelined slightly to help all these inquiries from my own staff. and then having to continue to do all the other bits that I was intending to do that day anyway. So that's probably quite hard.
There's a bit of firefighting almost aspect to your role, so that's sort of a key feature of what you do, keeping your team happy on some level. And is Here and do any of that stuff, or is it all comes through you?
Well, he does, but he's got to a point now where he trusts me and he respects we both work quite similarly. So he's very happy now for me to take the role of that person. And he's very clear with the team that it's Alice first and then I can escalate to him, which, being remote, sometimes that's a little harder on the team, but I'm always contactable. They can always phone me. They can always email, message me. I only work 4 days a week. So on my day off on a Friday, my boundaries are I won't speak to patients or contractors on a Friday. But if staff need to speak to someone, then I'm always available. I'm human. So it doesn't impact my life too much having a quick conversation with a staff member on a Friday. But that's my personal boundary. People respect that though. Like, I love when the team solve problems themselves. So I will try and encourage that. Try and fix it first and then come to me.
Yeah, come to me with a solution or three options, what we could do about this. Come to me with a
Yeah, I'm trying to go full Hive on people, and whatever they come to me at is then ask them the question back,
yeah.
what would you
What do you
do?
think you should do? If you didn't know the answer, what would it be?
That's it.
Do you think, just on that note, you said, that the hardest part is dealing with people and team. Do you think it's beneficial for a practice manager to have maybe HR experience? Just a thought.
Yeah, I think it can help. I personally didn't have HR experience. I mean, I've obviously worked in industries where you've needed a form of HR, but we're with Bright HR, and the last 6 months, I've probably learned more employee law and immigration law than an HR manager would ever learn. Um, I think there's so many resources out there to pick it up, but I think if you've got a background in it, then it's very helpful.
Okay, so that might be a useful, nice to have if somebody's thinking of hiring a practice manager. Some background there would be useful.
Definitely, yeah. I think areas that you'd want to, if you were looking at resumes, I think areas that you'd want to kind of see is either HR managing, hospitality, or some sort of finance maybe background. Is just things that you're basically going to, these are all areas that you're going to have to deal with. So if you have come from any one of those, then it's going to make your life a lot easier.
So if we were to imagine we're a healthcare business owner, this is the question I want to know. When are we hiring? When is a good time for a healthcare business to hire a practice manager? Because sometimes we see people hiring practice managers potentially too early. So what's the sweet spot? When should they be hiring?
This is only my opinion. I've worked for two clinics, so I've had two very different experiences being a practice manager. But I think the one of the sort of moments on it's now is when the owner is becoming the bottleneck of the business. It's the kink in the road. It's things are not progressing, things are not being done because they are wearing too many hats. They every day they intend to do 1,000 things, but they might end up just being in clinical days, and then you're spending all night doing business stuff, or you're having to take days and days out of your week to run the business, but you still want to be on the tools, or you still need to be financially on the tools.
That was going to be my next point because we were discussing this in the Hive, one of our meetings. When do they come off the tools versus when do they hire a practice manager? Having you as the clinical director, as the business can be really super powerful. And actually, if you become non-revenue generating and then hire a practice manager, where's the sweet spot? So you'd say the clinical director's still on the tools a bit and then can free up that brain space to a practice manager. Is that right?
For my journey to date, the owner has always been on the tools still when I've come in. I suppose now, with thinking of hearing, he's only on the tools because he wants to be on the tools. He loves it and he still loves seeing patients. So it's his passion. He could quite easily not be on the tools. Yes, we wouldn't be billing as much each month, but we've got a really good team that bill very well. It's just he enjoys it and it keeps him relevant in the business and in the industry. But equally, he could come off it. But I think you've got to really know what your role is going to be. If you're bringing a practice manager on, you can have a lot of blurred lines. So you need to understand, if you are going to be off tools, then what is your role? And what is their role? And the practice manager, they're not there to replace you, they're there to work alongside you. So you can then focus all your time on the vision and the future, and the practice manager can just implement it all, get the team and everyone on board, and do all of that stuff that just takes up a lot of time and frees you up to be able to just decide where the business is going. But it doesn't mean you don't have to do any of that. Things like, I mean, gosh, tax. I don't get involved in tax. That's a hearing thing. So like the actual running of a business, the
day-to-day.
Day-to-day, yeah. But you know, the insurance, all the bits of when you actually are a business owner.
The compliance side is still the owner's job.
Yeah. And I mean, look, one day you can hand that over to someone if you wanted to. I mean, I sort of see the practice manager as just being that kind of operation, you know, with the marketing, the finance, the HR, the team leading, all of that kind of falls under their scope.
And then strategy and compliance maybe for the...
I do a lot of compliance, but I've realised that's my boring area that I quite enjoy. And I love a rule, so a rule and a list. So compliance is right up my street. But yeah, I suppose it's just, if you work out as an owner what you want to do, and not necessarily give all the bits you don't want to do, but it's all the other bits that just take up too much of your time that actually don't need to do. That's the beauty of the practice manager, is you can hand that all over.
Delegate what isn't absolutely necessary. Yeah.
And as they grow with the business, they're going to be able to take on more and more things anyway. But I think the main, like, back to your question of sort of when is the right time, I think it's, if you are the bottleneck to the growth of the business, then I think that's probably the time to go, do you know what, I think we need help higher up. And you know, if everyone is coming to you with questions and all you're doing is spending your time answering and never actually moving forward, then I think that is the moment when you need your number two who can do all of that.
And you need some better systems in place. Yeah,
definitely better systems. Yeah. And actually that's one area. So coming into Flawless Feet, I've been there 6 months now. I've spent the last, well, I guess 6 months sort of looking at their processes, looking at their SOPs, and rewriting pretty much all of it. So I've got a really, really in-depth idea of how the business works now. Probably more so than any, I think Hiren is probably the only other person who has the same in-depth as me now in the business. And so now the two of us can take that to we've got a team alignment coming up, and as we can just explain this to everyone. And Troy does, are you on the bus? So this is our are you on the bus moment, because this is now
where we're going.
Yeah, this is the journey and this is how we're going to get there. At the end of the day, it's going to make their life so much easier, because everything is now documented and we've got the processes in, and it's just now just bringing everyone on board with it.
Glorious. Sounds glorious. So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to impart upon our healthcare practice owners that might be listening?
Yeah, well, I think if you are questioning, am I the bottleneck? I think the time is now. And I think if you've got someone in your reception team that is really acting like someone a bit more senior than your standard receptionist, then maybe start thinking, could they be a practice manager? Or just start looking at, what don't I want to do, or what do I want to spend more time on elsewhere that I can get someone in to be a practice manager?
How can I start delegating bit by bit? Yeah.
Yeah, and even, you know, if you've got someone in admin that is just naturally stepping up, is try and give them a few more of the jobs that you're doing that you don't necessarily, you know, you could potentially one day hand over to a practice manager, and just see how they take it. They're either going to run with it or not, and test the waters a bit. And then at the end of the day, you want to be able to have all the vision for your business. So you just need someone that's going to integrate that into the business for you. What you've got to remember though is that a practice manager is not your assistant. You know, they're not going to become your personal assistant, or they might do if that's what you want, but they're there for the business. So I think working out what you actually want from one, and then go and look for that, because there's plenty of us out there, and I can see the benefit that I've had on Hiren this year with just him being able to be more visionary for the clinic and steer us in a much better or much more direct future.
So in summary, we're saying look for somebody with a potentially broad or related spectrum of experience from other facets of life. When you're hiring, make sure that you actually have a clear plan in place and defined roles about what you actually need. Look to hire from within and internally grow. And if you're the bottleneck in your business, and everything's coming through you, then that might be the right time to start thinking about hiring.
Yeah, I think so. I suppose with the hiring within, sometimes that's not possible. And I think if you do hire outside of the business, I think you've also got to be really mindful that if someone's coming into the business and they're coming in as a manager level, is you've got to remember they need to now learn podiatry, and podiatry isn't the easiest industry to learn quickly. And so you've got to have some patience there if you're bringing someone in who's never been in the podiatry world, is that it will take them a minute to learn that. Plus, if you're, well, most people that I'm sure listen to this will be part of the Hive or thinking of becoming part of the Hive. That's quite a unique way of thinking as a business owner as well. So that takes a moment to get on board with as well. When you do take someone on, is just be patient. They might not flourish in that first month or first 6 months, because there is so much that they've had to learn. But if you can see the benefit in them, then it should come.
Words of wisdom from Alice. Thank you very much.
My mic drop moment.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's all for this episode of the Optimised Practice podcast. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or YouTube so you never miss another episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media platforms as well. If you want help building your practice, please reach out to us at the Hive so we can show you how to build a profitable and stable and highly respected practice that can ultimately work without your daily input. See you in the next episode. Thanks, Alice.